Hello and welcome to the Radio Edit, a podcast about the craft and process of documentary filmmaking. I'm Jesse Kepke, a documentary editor for the past 15 years, and today I'm joined with Jennifer Beman, an editor of over 120 documentary films and nonfiction television programs for filmmakers such as Michael Moore, National Geographic, Discovery, Frontline, many more. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Jesse. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, same. I was actually looking through kind of your credits and realized, oh my gosh, you worked on Michael Moore's first film. So I'm definitely going to ask about that in a minute. But yeah, just to start off, can you share kind of how you got into being a documentary editor? I feel
Uh-huh.
like that particularly is very niche, you know, kind of space to focus in. So I'd love to hear how you got into it.
Well, I wanted to be an editor from pretty early. I don't know, in my late teens or something. Mostly because I really bonded with my brother over watching movies, and it was something that we went out and did together a lot. And I don't know, I was attracted to the editing side of it. And then when I started working in what there was in DC, that's where I'm from, Washington, DC, it was mostly the doc world that I was in. And so my first internship was for a PBS show called Smithsonian World. And I
Nice.
just fell in love with. I decided this is the kind of editing I want, is the documentary editing. Mostly because it's, there's so much to learn. Like every show that you're
Mhm.
on, this is like a deep dive masterclass in whatever the
Oh,
subject is that was maybe something that you never would have known about anyway, in other circumstances. So I love that part of it, the learning and the
yeah.
and the creativity, and that's what's in DC. So that's what I did. You know?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I love about documentary too,
Mm.
is it's like this little, pinhole look into a world that just then massively expands. You
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
discover new things.
Listen to really smart people talk about it,
Hmm.
and really spend time with the material, an 8 week or 10 week edit or something, or a
Yeah.
6 month edit on this one topic. It's a really interesting perspective on the world, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know for me, it's
Mm.
expanded my understanding. Like, oh, I used to think this, but then I worked on that. Like, I constantly reference the films that I've
Uh-huh.
worked on
Yeah,
and things
yeah.
that I've learned.
Yeah. Though
So
sometimes I have the experience of, like, somebody's talking about some topic and I'm like, I think I worked on a documentary about that.
that's
What
awesome.
would, if I remember anything?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're starting a film and it's a new topic or a new person and you haven't, you don't know anything about them, know anything about the topic, what's your first step when you're starting to work on a new film or a program?
Well, just to watch everything,
Mm,
really. But before that, talk to the person I'm working with about what their vision is and where they're going and what it's about. And sometimes people give me things to read, but typically it's, first source is the material that they have. So do a
yeah.
deep dive into that, and that out of that comes this, sense of, what is this film about? What are people going to say? How are we
Mm,
going to tell this story? All these different perspectives, maybe if it's a lot of interviews and you're trying to figure out who's going to tell what part of it. So it's more like it's just immersing yourself into the material. And the process of that is usually, for me, it's I'm looking at all the material and I'm also pulling out selects at the same time.
yeah.
So I mean, it used to be, a long time ago, I would sit, I don't know what you do, sit and just watch everything once,
Mm,
to sort of have it wash over you, you know.
yeah.
Um, but now I've combined that with I watch everything and make selects at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of patience in trying to do a passive. I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to observe and see, and the
Yeah,
patience involved in that.
yeah. I mean, just even watching everything and pulling the selects is enough of a slog, honestly. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all really interesting, but it's also the uh, the level of attention that you need for an extended
Mhm.
period of time, because it's not just listening to everything. It's that you're having to, like, take every moment that you're seeing as, what does this moment mean? How is this moment
Mm.
affecting me? You've got to be, like, constantly aware of yourself as the viewer and your
Yeah.
reaction to the material as you're watching and pulling selects. It's the level of concentration that it takes is kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of dailies are really boring.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, especially you get into the verite stuff and it's 3
Yeah,
hours of just running camera.
yeah, exactly.
How does your conversations with the director go during that stage of, okay, I'm watching through this stuff. Are you in continual conversation with the director on like
Mm,
what were you intending with this scene, or what does that
mhm,
interplay kind of look like?
mhm. It honestly it varies a lot. A fair amount of the stuff that I work on, because I'm also a story producer and a writer. A
Mm,
lot of the things are things that people are just kind of trusting me to just here's some footage, make a movie out of this.
yeah.
And so that has been um, uh, half of my work is that. So I'm really just kind of trying to sort of make my way through the story um, um, relatively on my own, based on the conversations that I've had about with the filmmaker or the producer, who is has their ideas about where they're going. What's this? Maybe they'll give me a what they think as a sort of a shooting script, or they
Mm,
have maybe they've looked at all the material and they put together some sort of outline. Uh, but that's like sort of something to keep on the side as a as a reference, but you really have to follow the material, and I think
mm,
most people know that. So
yeah.
um, but then other times I've worked really closely with a producer or a director, and um, so one of the things I've told people in the past is to think to not uh, try to give me a shooting script. Like, the thing that
Mm,
I want more from them is, what are the you've got a bunch of scenes, for instance, that you shot, and what are the meaning of those scenes, and what do you think are the ideas that you're going to hang on that scene? So I want you to tell me, okay, we went out and we shot. I'm thinking now of one I did recently called "Call Me Dancer," which was a feature doc about a kid who was trying to be a ballet dancer. He started out wanting to be a ballet dancer. Then became more of a contemporary dancer, and it kind of followed his career and path. So they had a lot of material from him as he sort of shot his early part of his journey. And then they'd gone to he was in India, and so they'd gone to India and shot some things. So they'd shot these scenes. So I wanted to know, okay, you shot this scene of him dancing alone in a studio. What idea are you thinking that you're going to hang on that?
mm,
And what things has he said in interviews? They did a lot of interviews with him. What things has he said in interviews are you thinking is going to be part of that scene? So it's more like a beat sheet they're giving me. Here's a
yeah.
scene. Here's what I think we're going to be saying. Here's a scene. Here's what I think that we're going to be saying. And that for me, that's a good place to start, rather than to try to script each of those things and put them in order.
Mm,
Because I think once you get all those beats, then you figure out what order they're going to play in.
right, right. Well, yeah, and that's where your skills as an editor can go, oh, this was your intention. These are the building blocks we have.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's how that could work together. Or what if we did it this way, and come in with a unique idea that you came up with while you're watching stuff.
Right. It almost, rarely will it be that you end up, we actually ended up saying something else over that scene
Yeah.
of him sort of
Yeah.
dancing alone in the studio. But it is a place to start and I think it gets everybody thinking, like, what are the beats of this story,
Mm,
in a fine detail, not just, he's we need a beat to set up that he who his family is and who they are and what his goals are, and we
mm,
need a beat where he meets his teacher, and those are kind of big beats, but each of those has a lot of small beats. You can keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I've always thought that documentaries are kind of fractal. They
mm,
you as you dive into a scene, it has beats too. And as you dive into even at the level of a shot, it has beats. A shot begins and has a middle and an end.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. And I love the idea of that question of what's the idea that we're gonna
mm,
hang on this scene? Like what's the I
hmm
heard a uh metaphor recently of like there's the vegetables of a scene. Like he goes
yeah,
into a studio, he dances, the very practical things that are happening, and then there's the protein in a scene of like this is the idea we're gonna unpack while we
yeah, yeah,
watch these vegetables unfold.
yeah. I,
Each
I
day.
like that metaphor. That's good. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So, speaking of directors,
Mm.
and I love this, you worked on Michael Moore's first film, Roger and Me, and I'm wondering what that process was like because, his films tend to be very personality driven and
hmm
he's a present character. And so, yeah, what was that process like working with him on his first film?
Yeah, that's a crazy story, isn't it? I mean, I had never edited anything. I
Wow.
was an assistant at Smithsonian World for a couple of years, um, and then I met Michael Moore. Yeah. And I offered to cut his demo reel for
Mm.
free. I said, I'll cut your demo reel for you. Um, and then he had an associate producer that he brought with him from Flint, Wendy Stansler, and she wanted to edit as well. So he said, "Can the two of you, completely novice editors who'd never edited anything, would you edit my movie?" And we were like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
um, and it was um, it was such a great experience. And so we were editing on film. So we had
Mm.
two Steenbecks in this grungy little office on
Wow.
near Georgetown, George Washington University in DC. And he had one little office. It was probably 6 by 8, tiny thing. And then we were in the living room, and all the film was in the bathtub. And there were,
Wow.
we were in this little office, and we're smoking at our Steenbecks. I mean, it was a long time ago. What was it like? I remember we got the beats of the story, the scene of the story
Mm.
together pretty quickly. And um he knew a lot about what he wanted. Like there were
Mm.
some scenes where he would go and he'd shoot some interview with somebody, and he knew there's this piece where this guy says this bit, and there's one where he interviewed this guy standing outside of uh, like a plasma donation center, and the guy said, "Yeah, I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're closed." And that's kind of all we used from him. Like he came back from that shoot and he said, "Here's the piece we want." And
Wow.
so so if you look at that film, it's like a bunch of little vignettes.
Mm.
Um, and and those vignettes, half of them probably he knew what was going to be in that vignette, and we never
Wow.
even like looked at the rest of the material. I don't think I ever looked at the rest of that interview with that guy. Some of them were a little more complicated than that. I mean, a lot of them were a little more complicated than that, but there was a bunch of beats, and so the problem that we struggled with for a long time, we edited that for, I don't know, 10 months,
Wow.
um, was what order to put them in.
Mm.
And and so we'd, take everything completely apart and put them on little cores, and then we'd rearrange them, and then we'd sit and watch them again. And we did that for a really long time. I
Wow.
think his original idea for the structure was that it would be, um, there were these categories of beats,
Mm.
and he thought there would be like, one category was the efforts of the town to renew themselves, and he was thinking, well, those will sort of go throughout the film. We'll keep coming back to that theme. Um, and eventually what we did is clump those all together. So the efforts of the
Mm.
town to renew was like a an act of the film. So
Yeah.
finding the structure, and I think that's true for everything that I've worked on, is
Oh,
that it's the finding the structure that is that takes the time and is the you know, a lot of scenes, you probably have this too. A lot of scenes, you cut it the first time and it barely changes.
mm. If only they were all like that.
Yeah. And then what changes though is, what order that you put them in, how you transition from one to another, how the story builds.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I think that is definitely a theme I've seen of sometimes you're working on something that's very clear, chronological, and we can't
uh,
put the thing that happened in 95 before what happened in 89 or whatever. But then a lot of times it's, oh yeah, we have these collections of scenes and it's almost like emotionally figuring out
mm,
what order are they going to go in to either build
yeah,
the emotion or reach a certain point in the emotion. That's like the big question.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So comparing that experience working with Michael Moore, personality driven films with, say, the work you've done with Frontline or National Geographic, where, Frontline is like omniscient narrator. I'm going to
yeah,
take you through this
yeah.
chronology. How did that experience working with Michael Moore compared to working on some of those other, more, absence
Mm,
of personality?
mhm.
And how do you, I think a bigger question then too is how do you adjust your editing or your approach to films that have such differing styles?
That's a great question. Um, so the one of the things that was nice about working in Michael Moore's film so early in my career, is that uh, it really set me off in a place of thinking that documentaries are wide open. They can be anything. I mean,
Mm,
his documentary,
mm,
when that came out, that was groundbreaking. There
oh,
was This was not a kind of documentary that had been seen. I mean, there have been some things like that, but it was different. And it was very personality driven, and that was new. And that's, that has evolved. I think, then, a lot of people started doing that kind of
yeah,
thing. So I think having that sort of freedom of that we can be, we can tell our stories in whatever way are best for the stories we have to tell.
yeah.
And a narration driven documentary like Frontline, has its place, and those are a great way of
Mm,
communicating, complex issues. And then in the range of documentaries that we have right now, of documentary styles that we have right now, is um, it's so vast and
yeah,
fun and amazing that how it has exploded in just the genres. And I love working on all of them for different reasons.
yeah,
I don't think there's one kind that is a really that different way of approaching it as an editor. You're still always looking for the moments,
mm, mhm,
the things that really communicate deeply to the audience, or quickly to the audience, or emotionally to the audience. Even in a Frontline documentary, you're looking for those. I
mm,
always, I think, I mean, that um, verite footage is the most um, impact. I think that really impacts
mm,
people.
yeah,
The more real something is. So you're looking for the real moments, even in, in any kind of documentary. I think that you can bring that kind of that power that the verite style has to anything that you're working on to some degree. I mean, that's always, I think, a little bit the goal,
yeah,
to because you want it to be, as real as you can. You want people to really feel it like they're watching it. I think that's what the power of documentaries is.
yeah,
So in a lot of ways, I approach them all the same, because we're trying to tell a story, we're trying to communicate to people, we're trying to captivate them and capture them on this journey that we're going to go on together. And how do we do that in whatever the style is that we've chosen for this?
yeah. Yeah, that reminds me, we were talking on LinkedIn recently about Billy and Molly, which is a great documentary about a man who
Oh,
forms a relationship with
yeah, yeah,
baby otter, and
yeah.
how a lot of that was driven. Again, it is kind of personality driven in the sense that he took a lot of the footage or a lot of the
Mm,
video, and then other filmmakers came in and kind of like built it out. But it makes me think there's that emerging trend of it is kind of personality driven where it's personal
mm,
footage that someone took,
mm.
but it's, kind of from no name people, not necessarily a
Yeah, yeah,
personality
yeah,
celebrity, but a personality and like, this is me and this is the footage that I shot and how
yeah.
I experienced this event.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so interesting about that documentary and that's this kind of documentary that we see more and more because now everybody has a phone in their hands all the time.
Mhm.
So anytime that you're making a documentary, and I mean, really the first question I'll ask someone when they're talking to me about the documentary they have is, what's the footage going to be? What are you
Mhm.
shooting? And um, that there's all these different buckets of documentary styles, and there are basically what is the footage that you're shooting. So
Mhm.
a documentary like was it Bill and Molly? Was that it?
Yeah, Billy and Molly, I think.
Billy and
Yeah.
Molly. So Billy and Molly is like so much of that is Bill's footage that he shot with his
Mhm.
camera. And then the filmmakers come in and they shoot a bunch of beauties and they shoot interviews. And so you're finding those people who have had something amazing happen to them and have all that footage on their phone, and then that you can then like package it into a documentary. And if they're going out to a funder or whatever to say, "Hey, what is my documentary?" Well, it's mostly this footage of this person capturing his own relationship to this animal. And that's what I think defines what that documentary is. If what your footage um, a bunch of archival stills and interviews. Well, you tell me that, I kind of know what this documentary is
Mm.
kind of going to look like, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you tell me that, I'm going, I'm following someone around while they do their work, and I'm shooting them as they do it, and then I'm going to interview them. I know what that documentary is going to look like. Like what your footage is like the most critical part of. I mean, that sounds so banal to say, but um, it's not. And that's, I think, when I look for documentaries to watch, it's kind of the thing that I look for. Like, what did they shoot?
Mm.
I want to
Yeah.
know. You can make, I think, a fascinating documentary about any subject. The topic, in a way, doesn't doesn't say what's great about this as a
Mm.
form of entertainment kind of documentary.
Mhm.
It's what did you shoot to tell that story is what
Yeah.
I'm most interested in.
Yeah. I
And
love
how'd
that.
you shoot it, and where'd you get it?
Yeah. I wish Netflix would arrange their documentaries according to style of footage. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, like because I mostly want to watch Verite.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. No, those are the ones where it feels like, oh, I'm in the moment.
I'm in the
And it's,
moment. This is
yep.
happening right now, and I'm
Yep.
with people in their life. I'm with their life as it's
Yeah.
unfolding, and that's what all these people with these iPhones in their hand are giving us is, "Look, I have all this footage of inviting you into my life, all this footage that I've shot,
Yep.
and now how do we make this into a story?"
Yep. Yeah. Which is always a fun question to tackle.
Yeah.
So, documentaries often throw curveballs. Like, I've worked on films and it's like, oh, that person doesn't want to be on camera anymore. Or, oh, we discovered this new treasure trove of footage or new access to something. What's an unexpected twist in your career that stands out? And how were you able to adjust to that and figure out how to keep going?
And that's a question that makes me wish that I'd asked for the questions beforehand because I probably would have been able to think of something.
Yeah.
Well, there's always going to be an unexpected twist that we didn't expect. And uh, and hopefully, a lot of it happens in the field. I mean, there's hardly a shoot
Mm.
where there's not some unexpected twist. Um, so I will say, okay, a couple things come to mind, I guess. I've been on projects where the field crew goes out to shoot something and it didn't turn out the way they expected. They didn't
Mm.
get what they wanted. And I think some producers can have a hard time, like, oh, they're like so consumed with, you know, that that they didn't get what they wanted. They've whatever they feel like, self-flagellation or whatever about not getting what
Yeah.
they wanted, or they just this is what it was supposed to be. And I look at it and I see, well, this is yes, you didn't get what you wanted, but look at what it is. It's something
Mm.
else.
Yeah.
And that's happened. I think that's one thing that an editor can really help with is say, look at what the footage you have and let's see what it can be that you shot.
Yeah.
And you have to like clean your brain of
Mhm.
all your expectations about what the footage is and follow what it is. And a lot of times those turn out to be great scenes. Those are really
Yeah.
really powerful scenes that are important that it's hard, I think, when the producer comes back from the field and they're watching it and they're going, and they're remembering all the terrible things that happened on the shoot, and it's harder for them to see what it really is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it strikes me
mm,
hearing you say that being a documentary editor and then just a documentary filmmaker in general requires a
mm,
lot of presence. Like
mm,
there's regret of, oh, I didn't get this, or the frustration of I want it to be this and it's not,
mm,
and kind of choosing to just be present with this is what it is. How can we
mhm,
craft that into the best story we can, minus
yeah.
regret or frustration, and
Mhm.
just actually be present?
Yeah, it's like I was saying before, like that sense of being present, in every moment, because you have to and I think for if you're when you're working on really difficult subjects, that can be really
Mm,
hard. I think that can be
yeah.
emotionally hard. I was uh talking to someone recently who said they had some healthcare or mental health practitioners available on set to work with the crews through some really difficult
Wow.
things they were seeing, and and I've definitely had that as an editor where it's really you're looking at really painful stuff, and
Yeah.
you have to because you're every moment trying to judge it for what it is. You have to like you know open yourself up and leave yourself as like to some degree a raw nerve so that you
Mm,
can feel what it is, but then you've opened yourself up like a raw nerve and you have nightmares and you can't sleep. Um,
yeah.
because that can be one of the hazards of the job. But
Yeah.
yeah, you have to open yourself up to all sorts of things as a filmmaker. I have the greatest respect for documentary filmmakers that put everything that they put into their film. And I come on for this brief period. They've been already been working on it for years, and I come
Mm,
on and I work with them. We have a great experience. We make this great film, and then I go on to my next job. And now they've
yep.
got to sell it, and
Yep.
um, they're just like heroic people to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for real. I've worked on some films like that, and we had a
Mhm.
counselor available, and it's like, yeah, I came in and worked on it for a year, but the director, was on it for a decade. And you're like, ah,
Right.
all right.
Right. And being on it for a year is you get really attached to things and
Hmm.
really um I don't know, the relationship I think that we have as editors with our it's so intimate in a way,
Yeah.
we're really we're it, it's a different kind of intimacy almost even than the
Mm,
producer or the director has because we know really literally every frame and we
yeah.
know that shot that there isn't any more to that shot, and it doesn't and we know what they say next and they go off on a tangent, and so we're really and we know all of these like I don't know. I always have like little private jokes too in mine, that nobody else notices, but like this little, or I'm it's very hard actually as an editor to not be like constantly anticipating what's coming next. I know the next edit's really good. Um, And anyway, so those that can also be a hazard because you know, you have to kill your babies is um, the the things that that your little private joke that you're trying to save
Yeah.
is getting in the way of
You're
finding the
like,
right structure.
yep, yep. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah, so that emotional journey that we go on as we're looking
Mm,
through the footage or the director producer has
mm,
that connection with the material. How do you help create that emotional connection with the audience? Because they're coming into it brand new. They're only sitting down
mm,
for 2 hours compared to, however many years or an hour if it's a shorter program. How do you
mm,
build that emotional connection through your editing with the
mhm,
audience?
mhm. I don't know.
That's the
I
big
mean,
question.
really, I mean, just honestly, I build it with myself. There goes my mic again. I build it with myself, right? I'm like the test case for does this touch me? It doesn't quite. I feel a little bit lost. I think, that like I'm trying to make it, uh, because I've no, I don't know what other people are like inside their head. I only have me to understand, what's going on. So I use myself as the guide. And then and then you show it to other people and you listen to what they say and they have a different perspective and you go on and think about it that way and how can I tweak it? And I always think of it as I never want to let go of the hand of the audience. So, so I don't want them to wonder why they're looking at this shot or or what he just said. I don't want them to wonder, unless them wondering is what we do want. Sometimes you do want them to wonder. So, I really feel like we're walking along and holding hands and I don't want them to stumble and I don't want them to go down the wrong path. Um, so I don't know. I just do the best I can.
Yeah, and there's like, there's a care for your audience as you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it strikes me
Yeah.
that as editors, we're like holding the hands of the director, like, yes, you had a
Yeah.
vision, you had an
Yeah.
intention, I want to bring that to
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
also holding we're playing dual roles in trying to be
Right.
an audience member and also the crafts person who's working with the director to bring about their vision.
Yeah. And then we use all the tools that we do to use that.
Hmm.
We use music and we use rhythm and we use surprise and we use emotion and when do we want to see the person cry? And so we're bringing all these tools together into this thing
Hmm.
that is going to hopefully make people feel the way that we're trying to make them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's a fun genre to work in for a lot of those
Yeah,
reasons.
and to be and being aware of like all of the things that contribute to that,
Mm.
like the uh the sound design and the rhythm of what someone's saying and the cutaway that an unmotivated cutaway and you've lost people like
Yeah.
so there's a just a fine detail to like every piece of it that
Oh.
is that's what we love about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's why we're here. So in your career, because you started kind of mid to late 80s, how have
Mm,
you seen the documentary genre change over those years?
mm.
And what are your hopes for it kind of going into we're getting deeper into the
Yeah,
21st century and documentary has been around for a long time now.
yeah, yeah,
Have you seen it
yeah.
change over your career and what are your
Oh
hopes for
God,
it?
yeah, a lot, a lot. So I worked most of my career. I mean, I'm outside the Washington area, so that's my market. And after I did Roger and Me, he went off to New York, and I stayed in D.C. And re- I I always wanted to be. My dream was to, which is kind of funny to think now. My dream was to work at National Geographic, which I did for many years. And I love natural history and science and all the things that National Geographic did, and Discovery Channel. And that's what, I raised my kids with, doing those kind of shows. And then the styles would change, over the years. And, we do sometimes we do it, a tease at the beginning. The style of teases at the beginning changed periodically, and or the amount of narration changed. The amount of narration that's in style has gone up and down, and so a lot of like stylistic changes, and in the more like the featured documentary world, that's has like I was saying before, has just exploded in the kinds of styles and the kinds of things people are doing and the kind of footage that people are using to tell their story. So it's changed a lot. And then, a year or two ago, it all collapsed, and things have really, I think everyone's kind of trying to find their way now in a new world. A lot of the
Yeah.
clients that I was going to, just a few years ago, they're not making those things anymore that I was making with them. And I'm looking for, new clients, trying to figure out how to get in, um, um, how to make, well, now that my kids grew up. So when I was like, when my kids were young, my husband stayed home. He homeschooled our kids. So he was the stay-at-home parent. I raised my kids as an edit, raised our whole family as an editor, and I had to,
Wow.
like, when a job ended on Friday, I needed a new one starting on Monday, and I would
Wow.
take whatever I there was. And there was stuff, I was that there was a lot of work there. So now my kids are in college, or we've paid for their college, and I'm really branching out, wanting to be more, do more feature documentaries, and I've done, I don't know, a couple in the last couple of years, and I've got one coming up, and that's, so I'm really leaning into that, which is good timing because the other stuff I was doing is kind of dead in the water, at least in the Washington market it is, and I think elsewhere as well. So I'm happy to be changing with that and trying to, find new ways to market myself, which I guess is what you're doing too, by like doing this podcast, which is a brilliant idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, and meet more people, make more connections, and because we all have to like find new ways to talk to filmmakers, because the
Yeah.
studio, whatever, Netflix, all, the big guys aren't doing us any favors now. So,
Mm. Yeah.
I love the way just we're seeing people sort of more. It seems like new to me because I'm just now for the first time participating in it. Is more connections, more events, more,
Yeah.
talking to each other like this, posting on LinkedIn, trying to make those contacts. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. And I think staying,
That's more
staying,
like
f-
how the industry changed than how documentaries have changed. Sorry.
right. Well, and like, I mean, where does funding come from documentaries and what's the distribution like? And as those
Mm,
things change, the format or focus or
yeah,
all the stuff about
yeah,
documentary
yeah,
changes with it. And
yeah,
we, as the people making them, trying to stay flexible and
yeah,
open-minded enough to be able to pivot as
yeah,
needed is
yeah.
one, the frustrating part of it, but also the exciting part of it.
Right. I think that the where documentary is now, what it looks like to me is is real,
Mm,
more getting more,
yeah.
being in the moment and building stories out of those, things really happening. You didn't set it up as a filmmaker. You went there. It would have happened whether you were there or not, and you're filming.
Mm,
I think that's,
yeah.
um, the um, that seems to be the priority for documentaries now, I think.
Hey, I'm there for it. Those are some
Yeah.
of my favorite
Yeah.
styles, so that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Like, what are you working on next? And how can people see your work?
Um, well, I just did this. I did a film a couple years ago, Call Me Dancer, which has been in the done the festival circuit, did really well in festivals, and like so many
Nice.
other great films, did not get picked up for any kind of distribution. So I can't tell you where to go see that, sadly.
Sadly, yeah.
And the most recent film I did also about the Dalai Lama and Buddhism. Also, it's playing at Buddhist festivals, but we're trying to figure out where else you can see it. So I have right now I'm working on something for Maryland Public Television um, about this history of Maryland, and as a
Nice.
as a Marylander, that's fun. So I have a website. Mostly, I'm on LinkedIn, and I try to post there a lot because I
Oh,
found that it's been really interesting to start to try to talk and write about the process of storytelling, how we build stories, how we think about footage, that kind of thing. So whenever something occurs to me, I try to put it on LinkedIn. So follow me
oh,
there.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer, so much for sharing your process. It's been fascinating to listen. And thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It was great talking to you.